Welcome to Stingray, Tom's Florida, and another deeper dive into the archive. Today I'm heading to Lake Wales in Polk County, one of the great centers of the Sunshine State's golden age of tourism. From the 1950s to the 70s, when the small city had a population of about 8,000, Lake Wales was home to three popular attractions: Bok Tower Gardens, the Great Masterpiece, and the Black Hills Passion Play, as well as the mysterious Spook Hill. Just a few miles away in Winter Haven was Cypress Gardens, and there were several citrus packing house tours nearby. The focus for today is the Black Hills Passion Play. If you're not familiar with this old attraction, you're likely confused about that name. You may know that the Black Hills is a mountain range in South Dakota and Wyoming, but that doesn't explain how it became connected with Florida's Lake Wales Ridge. Especially when you learn that while the highest point in the Black Hills is over 7,200 feet or 2,200 meters tall, that of Florida's ancient peninsular spine is only 312 feet or 95 meters tall. Likewise, you may not know what a passion play is. That's understandable. Passion plays aren't all that popular in the US anymore. Simply put, a passion play is a dramatic presentation depicting the final days of Jesus, typically including his trial, crucifixion, death, and resurrection. While these days we use the word passion to describe an intense enthusiasm for something, the original meaning from Latin is to suffer or endure. So a passion play depicts the suffering of Jesus' final days on earth. Passion plays originated in Europe during the Middle Ages, with their roots in the ritual of the Church. Initially, passion plays were performed in Latin as part of the Easter liturgy. Eventually, the community would adapt the content and structure to audience expectations, until in the 15th century, what we know as a passion play had developed. I'll get to the whole Black Hills connection in a bit, since that explanation comes later in the story. Firstly, we need to head to Germany and the city of Lünen in the Ruhr Valley, the largest urban area in Germany. In 1904, Joseph Meyer was born in Lünen and was the third son of a family of 9 children. His family had been involved in the local passion play for some 7 generations. Meyer was a teen during World War I, and in the following peace, his family would experience many hardships like all of Germany, but by the age of 28, he was able to enroll in medical school. As the early 1930s were a highly turbulent time, Meyer would be asked to forego his education, at least temporarily, and join a troupe of actors as both actor and manager, which were going to America. It's thought that the main reason behind this was that religious plays had been banned in Germany by the fascist regime, and it would be good to carry on the tradition in a more stable country. Passion plays, which were performed throughout Europe, were all different from each other since there wasn't one single author. They developed locally and featured different scenes and different music, though of course much of the dialogue originated from the New Testament. Accounts of the Passion are found in the 4 canonical Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The company of players that Meyer joined performed their local version of the Passion, known as the Lünen Passionspiele. It's been stated that the Lünen Passion Play was the oldest in Europe, having been performed since 1242, though such an early date can't be substantiated. While it's possible, it might be more likely to be a marketing enhancement. By the way, the music selections in the background of this video were all used for many years as interludes between the Passion Play's 22 scenes. Arriving in the U.S. in 1931, their goal was to perform the play around the country. However, it was the middle of the Great Depression, and the troupe was forced to work regular jobs to support themselves while performing wherever they could. They'd settle in Chicago, and it would be there that Meyer would visit a theatrical agency to audition actors for the role of Mary Magdalene. One of the performers was Claire Hume. Born in 1914, she also came from a theatrical family. After a successful audition, she not only joined the players, but in 1936, Claire and Joseph would marry. Claire also moved from playing Mary Magdalene to the production's other Mary, the mother of Jesus, who was played by Joseph. The Meyers and their company of actors would travel around the country, going to the many German-speaking communities to perform their Passion Play in German, though they'd premiere an English translation in 1935. It'd be that version which would enable them to reach the rest of the country as the only regular touring cast of a Passion Play. They began seeing greater success and were playing to larger and larger audiences. This gave Joseph and Claire the idea of looking for a permanent site for the play where they could establish a home base, perform the play regularly, and be able to head out for select dates around the U.S. They put the word out during interviews and public appearances as they toured, and began getting offers from a number of cities and towns. At a performance in Sioux Falls, the remote small city in South Dakota, a committee from the western side of the state approached the Meyers. Representing most of the small towns in the Black Hills, the group urged the actors to visit the area. While the location and offer were attractive, there were other places in the country that were equally interesting. Still, the Meyers would return to the Black Hills, and specifically the town of Spearfish, and decide on property for what would become the Passion Play's permanent home. The first season of the newly named Black Hills Passion Play was held in 1939, and when you think of it, it was a culmination of a remarkable 8 years of events. Coming to the U.S., to founding a theater. Joseph was just 35 while Claire was barely 25. As you can guess, the Passion Play became a success, becoming one of the largest attractions in the area, along with the still under construction Mount Rushmore, located only 60 miles or 100 kilometers south of Spearfish. While the play was a success, the summer season for the open-air production was rather brief, typically running for about 3 months from June through August, so they continued to tour the country. Indeed, during World War II, they had to stop performing in Spearfish, but continued to tour. The U.S. government decided the play was a morale booster, so the Passion Play got special dispensation to have access to gas and tires, things that were heavily rationed, and placed a limit on most other travel. In 1938, a year before the first Black Hills season, the Meyer family grew by one. Claire and Joseph would have a daughter, Joanna. While she was born in Chicago, she'd spend the rest of her childhood in Spearfish or traveling around the country in her family's car, going from performance to performance. Like so many children born into an acting family, she made her first stage appearance rather early, at 5 weeks old. As she grew, she began playing small parts until at the age of 12, she would portray Salome, the granddaughter of Herod the Great. While Salome isn't actually named in the New Testament, it's thought that it was she who danced before her stepfather, King Herod Antipas, at his birthday feast. Her dancing pleased him so much that he promised to give her anything she desired. Salome's mother suggested that she ask for the head of John the Baptist. Herod reluctantly agreed, had John killed, and the head brought to Salome. That's an interesting role for a 12-year-old. In 1953, yet another town committee approached the Passion Play, this time from Florida. As I mentioned before, Lake Wales was already a tourist spot, with Bok Tower being a charming garden and majestic carillon that opened in 1929, and nearby Cypress Gardens, which was one of the first places in the world to have water ski shows. It opened its doors in 1936. Then in 1952, the first of Lake Wales' religious attractions opened. This was the Great Masterpiece, a recreation of Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper in 300,000 mosaic tiles. Thousands of tourists had been traveling to and through Lake Wales since before the 1920s, and they drove on the Dixie Highway, which would eventually become U.S. Route 27. For much of America, it was the main route to Miami. The local business owners invited the Meyers to visit Lake Wales and offered to build a similar outdoor theater to the one in Spearfish. The Passion Play chose to have a second home for another 3 months out of the year. It made a lot of sense. No one likes touring in the middle of winter. The property, located just south of the town, was in an orange grove. While the stage set was nearly identical, the 3,500 audience seats was just over half the size of the original theater's 6,000. The setting was a beautiful one, with the audience able to see a gently sloping hill of citrus trees behind the stage. They could even enjoy the scent of all the orange blossoms as well. Starting in January, the play ran through Easter, making the finale of the winter season the most dramatic performance of the entire year. Unlike in remote South Dakota, Florida already had a booming tourist trade when the Passion Play arrived. Winter was known as the high season, when hotel rates could double from the less popular summer rates. While Lake Wales and the surrounding area was primarily agricultural, the town was only a couple hours train ride from Miami, Palm Beach, Naples, Sarasota, and Tampa, all of which were well-developed destinations for the annual migration of hundreds of thousands of snowbirds to the Sunshine State. Known as Passion Play trains, people would ride through the countryside to reach the small Lake Wales passenger depot. While some would come directly for the play, others would spend the day and visit Bok Tower and the Great Masterpiece. The Black Hills Passion Play winter season became one of the many successful attractions in Florida's golden age of tourism in the 50s and 60s. Just to give you an idea of what the 50s were like, here's a few of the other attractions that also opened in 1953. Vizcaya, the ancient Spanish monastery, Ponce de Leon Springs, Horn's Cars of Yesterday, and the Fort Caroline National Memorial in Jacksonville. That the play would be popular in Florida was a foregone conclusion. The subject was popular with seniors and families with fairly young children. It was a spectacle, one that was unmatched in Florida, where most of the unusual performances are rather intimate in scale, such as looking at fish from a glass-bottom boat, watching mermaids swim from the comfort of a dry and air-conditioned theater, and seeing alligators propel themselves out of the water to grab dinner. Perhaps the impressive water ski shows at Cypress Gardens with aquamaids and stunt performers who skied barefoot and who launched off jumps to fly through the air was a rival for most dramatic, but with a cast of nearly 100, the retelling of the story of the death and resurrection of Jesus really had no equal. The Meyer family would manage the rather involved business as well as play leading roles on the stage in nearly every performance. It's estimated that Joseph played Jesus in nearly 10,000 performances, while Claire played Mary, the mother of Jesus, about 7,000 times. Joanna would go on to play Mary as well. She attended school in both South Dakota and Florida, eventually graduating in Lake Wales. As a young adult, she trained to be an opera singer at the University of Miami. She'd later train in New York and would join the New York City Opera in 1969. In 1958, she met her future husband, Guido della Vecchia, a successful operatic tenor. The New York City Opera cast Joanna in numerous lead roles beginning in 1976 in the Richard Wagner opera Adrian auf Naxos. For 14 years, she'd go on to be one of the most popular and talented sopranos in the country, playing leads in Puccini's Tosca, Mozart's Don Giovanni, and Wagner's Tannhauser and the Ring of the Nibelungen. Later, she'd perform for 3 summers at the Bayreuth Festival in Germany, the premier place for Wagner's operas. There, she'd be the first American to play Isolde in Tristan and Isolde. Joanna and Guido lived in New York, but they'd spend as much time with Joanna's parents as possible. When they could, both would perform in the Passion Play, with Guido connecting to his Italian heritage by playing Pontius Pilate, the governor of Judea. Joanna retired from opera in 1994, and they returned to Spearfish and Lake Wales to help manage the production. Claire and Joseph retired in 1991. Joseph had performed the same role in the same production for 60 years. a record likely unparalleled in U.S. history. In 1998, winter season in Lake Wales was the final one for the Passion Play in Florida. Attendance had been declining for a number of years, and the expense of the production and upkeep of the theater eventually made the play unprofitable. In its 45-year run, it held about 2,500 performances in Lake Wales and had an attendance of about 6 million people. The theater would close permanently in 2005, prompted by heavy damage from two of the major hurricanes that hit Florida in 2004, Charley and Jean. The stage set was destroyed and the entrance area heavily damaged. Apart from the Passion Play, the theater was regularly used as a setting for decades of high school graduations, including that of Joanna Meyer. Joseph Meyer died the year following the play's closure in Lake Wales, and Claire would follow him in 2007. The Black Hills Passion Play closed in Spearfish in 2008. It had been in continuous production in the U.S. for 77 years and averaged about 125 performances a year with around 25 million in attendance. There's little doubt that the Black Hills Passion Play was a successful attraction from the 1950s well into the 1990s. Prior to the construction of the interstates, which ran along each coast and neglected the Central Highlands, Lake Wales was on US 27, one of the main routes that got tourists to South Florida. Today, the Black Hills Passion Play might seem an unusual name for a Florida tourist attraction. But with a little information as to its fascinating history, the name makes a lot of sense. Lake Wales had invited an already nationally known theater to Florida. It was a different circumstance than the invitation to go to Spearfish. In 1939, the Myers production company was a traveling show looking for a place to call home. In '53, it had established itself as one of the most popular theater shows in the entire country and was remarkably successful. While the Myers were happy to call Lake Wales their winter home, there wasn't any reason to change the show's name. In Florida, the Black Hills Passion Play was as big of a draw as anywhere else in the nation. Today, it might be one of Florida's nearly forgotten attractions, but for 45 years, it was one of the largest and most beloved in the state. Thanks for watching another of my videos. I hope you learned something. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to learn more about Florida's tourism history. Stingray Tom's Florida, traveling through time around the Sunshine State.